All right, peeps, we're rolling. We are rolling. Let me just get this stuff out on Twitter. Oh man. All right. All right, people. We got some big stuff today. Wine wise. All right. Cool. So we're rolling. Today's wine, special occasion, 2/22/22. Very interesting day. Those of you who are going to be watching the COVID cabal after this, I think will probably enjoy that show. But we're going to start it off with dating relationships. Got a couple of great questions here. But first, we're going to do the wine. So I opened a wine that was a big favorite of mine. I'm hoping this bottle will hold up. It's the last one I've had, and we're doing Burgundy. And as you guys all know, Burgundy is my favorite. Really hard in my mind to beat Burgundy. Just phenomenal stuff. This is from a very interesting appellation, though, and I think you guys will probably like my talk on Burgundy because most Burgundy is really expensive. Like, it's kind of inaccessible. There are people who dedicate their entire life to Burgundy, and we're talking about locations that sometimes are like maybe a mile, like a square mile, maybe 2 square miles, usually less than 10. I mean, very, very tiny plots, very, very tiny plots. But Burgundy is a very interesting area because there's a lot of microclimates, and even more than that, there's a lot of different soils. Like, the soil is all mixed up in Burgundy. So couple of feet you have one soil, and a couple of feet you have another. It's a very marginal climate zone also. So there's a huge difference between whether the grape is at southwest or southeast facing. Nothing, by the way, is north facing up there. It's too far north. You can't even grow anything. So anyway, San Roman is the one we have today. And this is from a really niche, smaller producer, Claude Dumoulin au Moine, based in Alzey d'Ores. We'll do that one another time soon. It's a red, but this is a really interesting appellation. 2/3 of the wine produced in San Roman is white, 1/3 red. But San Roman is actually a relatively new Burgundy appellation. So the main parts of Burgundy have been around since 1100s, probably really, really far back out there, since the Crusades. Since the monasteries in the area were the ones that started to track this precise, times of when they should be planting things and when they should be harvesting. So you see the map of Burgundy here, and you can just get an idea of how complicated this whole area is. This is such a small amount of land. Look at this. This is 1 kilometer. So you're looking here like Pouligny-Montrachet. It's like 2 kilometers long, and that's an entire appellation. So obviously the production here is really small. There's a lot of families that only even own like an acre of land, and they sell their stuff to bigger producers. So we have San Roman right here. Now you can tell this is the main strip of Burgundy, which is all going northeast, right? You can see here it's all going northeast. But San Roman, it's a little bit more buried inside. And that's because San Roman, I don't know if you guys could see that properly, it's because San Roman, it was only added to Burgundy from this other appellation called Upper Haut Bourgogne, basically Upper Burgundy, back in 1947. So you could say, and the reason it was added so late is because it's a marginal area, right? But they determined that it was good enough to be considered in the main Burgundy section, although they don't have any Premier Cru or upper classifications. Now, why am I going through this whole long-winded thing? So you understand that if a regular Burgundy from, let's say, Pommard, which is not even a super high appellation itself, Volnay, those Burgundies are going to be running you easily minimum $30, probably often 40, 50. If you're doing Premier Cru, it's going to go even higher. A San Roman is not going to be super expensive. And the reason for that is it has a marginal aspect. It doesn't always ripen as fully. So if you have a cold year in Burgundy, maybe it's not quite as good as the surrounding wines. But if you have a warm year in Burgundy, then it's going to show just as well as the other areas, or nearly as well, and you're going to get it for a substantially lower price. And so what we have here is a 2015 from Saint Roman. I tell you about it, so if you can find Saint Roman in a store, you're probably going to get a good value, especially if you know it comes from a warmer year. So let's go try it out. Now, I've had this wine before. It was fantastic, but it's been a while. I don't know how well it's held up. Burgundy is usually pretty good for a few years, but marginal area. So apples are just jumping off the chart here, and you have a lot of you do have some creaminess. It might be a little bit past its ideal period, just from what I'm smelling. I'm almost getting a brininess, which I don't mind, but it may be that it's just quite past its prime. Let's see. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It might be a little bit past its time, just in the sense of the apples. You're starting to get a little bit of oxidation on this. Yeah, a little oxidation, which is like kind of like a vinegary kind of stuff you can get. But I'm happy I opened it. But the wine is still great. This would be considered, a nice aged white wine. Yeah. Mm. When I had it a couple of years ago, it was much more bright. Um, Whereas now it has, old girl showing some legs on her. And I will admit that the aftertaste, it has that really nutty oxidized flavor, which it's almost like a sherry, right? And it's nice, but it's kind of like it has to be, people who don't appreciate wine might not appreciate it. Anyway, long section on the wine, but it was a Burgundy, you got to give me that. All right, let's get into these questions here. So, question number 1, perhaps a good question, only if you don't have too many questions. This is from last show. Would be, how often or how would you go about texting someone and try to date if you've been already talking for a couple of months? Well, I don't know. Why are you talking for a couple of months and only now trying to text them and take them out on a date? I mean, I don't know the details here, but that sounds like you might be in the friend zone. So I can't really answer the question, to be honest, because it's too general. Like if I were to tell somebody, oh, just ask her out, well, that actually could be a bad decision because I don't know the context of the dynamic. And I don't know what you guys have been texting each other. I don't know what the tension's like. So just it's no problem for the person. I don't mean to single them out, but because I asked some good questions before. But when you guys are asking questions, please make sure to be a little bit more precise, because otherwise I can't really answer it well. There's just too many variables here. All right. Next question. Do you need to love someone to have sex with them? / is it right to have sex with someone you don't love but have strong feelings for? For instance, things are relatively good with my girlfriend, making progress in some of the other areas of concern I had with her, religious work, passion stuff, but we're still figuring out the sexual aspect. Had a long discussion with her about it, and she was saying how sex is something you just do with someone, has no significance, and she doesn't want that. She only wants to make love to her life partner. I do think she makes a lot of sense and has a point that waiting till marriage is probably the right thing to do, but I think it is only natural for a high T guy to crave it. Basically, she says that she wants to wait till marriage, special occasions, whereas I feel that I could never marry someone I didn't have sexual compatibility with, and there's no way for me to find that out with her stance, so we're kind of at an impasse. When I called her out on why she was not like this when we first started dating, she claims it's because I would not be interested in her if she didn't give in, and then we would have nothing. Curious your thoughts. Okay, so to the first question here, which the other one is more derivative of. Do you need to love someone to have sex with them? Is it right to have someone you don't love but have strong feelings for? This is a question that a lot of people may not like. Um, Well, first off, just to this comment, a high T guy with a girlfriend he's never had sex with. No, he did have sex with her. That's what it wasn't very clear from there, but he did have sex with her. Uh, it's just that since they started dating, the sex life got more lackluster. That's what she meant by she gave in. Why wasn't she like this when they first started dating? So it's like this. There's a couple layers here, as you can tell, right? There was sex in the beginning that tapered off for reasons. Okay, um, but first, to a more philosophical question. Some people are going to disagree with this. I respect the disagreement, and I'm actually really attuned to the slippery slope argument. Like I understand the slippery slope argument with this. I don't personally think it's a terrible thing to have sex with someone who you have strong feelings for, um, even if you're not married to them. On the flip side of that, I'm not convinced that things would be better in society if we didn't have that. Um, on a macro level, my my big thing is that people need to understand that sex is a powerful act and it's a sacred act, and I don't believe in restricting people to certain conditions that are recognized only by the church or society, right? um you could get into, for somebody who doesn't believe in that, but they want to have, they could get married without a legal paper. Would that be considered, a soul contract between the two of you? I don't want to dance around the issue. I just can say that there are women who I regretted having sex with, and there are women who I did not regret having sex with. And um, I would not be honest if I were to say that I wish I had waited until marriage to have sex. Um, I do probably wish that I didn't sleep with a substantial number of the girls I did sleep with, and that I had probably, there was some net negatives from that. I can't say that about every girl. I can't say that. I actually found a lot of those experiences to be positive. But, if I had maybe been more clear on what was important to me when I was younger, then maybe I would have had an easier time in getting married younger, and I wouldn't have needed those experiences. So you see, that's the nuance to the question. But I think what we can all agree upon and what we all need to emphasize is that sex is not a cheap act. It is an important act. Where exactly you draw the line with that is up to you. But be cautious about treating that act lightly. And um, you know, most of the guys there's a there's negatives from kind of wasting your energy with strangers, and this is bad for men, and it's even worse for women. It's much worse for women, as actually, like, they absorb the energy much more than a man does from casual sex. Okay, now going to the question itself, this is there's a lot of layers to it, but just to kind of keep it curt, um if she already had sex with you just to get you, then her backing off of it now shows that she's trying to resist sex, even if she doesn't want to tell herself this, for the wrong reasons. Um, Maybe some trads are going to disagree with me, but I can just say, on a psychological level, when a girl wants to have sex with you less over time, it's a desire issue. The desire was high enough in the beginning for her to violate her morals, so to speak, if that's what she's claiming, whereas now it's not. So what changed? What changed? So now you're supposed to just propose to her and then it's going to be fine. I don't personally buy that. Now, I will say that it's probable that this girl will, you know, will have sex, at least in the beginning of marriage. but it's hard to say how long that'll last, and because she's not going to be really enjoying it that much, right? She's not going to be fully investing herself in it. Over time, when she's got the marriage, she is likely to, she can say whatever she wants right now, and she may, out of obligation to the marriage, try to work on it, but it's not going to fix the desire issue. Okay. And this is what's important to understand. She may work on having sex more because she's married, but it doesn't fix the desire issue. Now, I take some of this stuff a bit differently than a lot of the guys who are in the red pill. And while I do think that dread would probably spike some of the sexual arousal on her end, like him leaving would probably do this, the big issue here is self-esteem stuff on her own end. It's basically what the story is. And honestly, you can also see how some of this is coming into play with the dynamic that, she feels like she probably feels like she's not really worth too much. And so that's part of the reason, but if you were to marry her, that would only give her a temporary bump because it's an external sense of her self-worth. So I'm not convinced that, you know, as far as your question about sexual compatibility and, that you need sexual compatibility, I do think that a couple's sex life can improve quite a bit over the course of a relationship, over the course of a marriage. But I'm just not getting the sense from this situation. I think that there's a lot of self-lying, like this whole, well, I only broke my morals to get you. It just kind of sets everything on the wrong premise. And I think you guys are going to have to get on the same page with things. I would not marry her to have sex, and because I don't think that that's going to work. I don't think it's going to work. So there would need to be some kind of, we need to let's focus. I'm committed to moving forward with marriage, but we need to also start moving forward with this stuff and helping her to do some of the deep work and clear out some of her baggage, because her lack of interest in sex is in many ways tied to her self-esteem. And that is a topic, a whole different topic I won't get into now. I wrote a whole piece on it, why a woman stops wanting to have sex. Self-esteem is a huge part of it. When a woman doesn't have her needs met, when she doesn't feel like she's worth much, her sex drive goes down. And you can only spike that with stress, which is dread game. But it's not a consistent way to go about doing things. All right. Ben, your question on here: if you got a sexually transmitted curse, how can you overcome it? There are certain prayers you can do, but you basically need to release your attachment to that individual. But I don't have that stuff on hand, to be honest. I think I have a book that deals with some of it, but and this is one of the things with Ben's talking about it. You can be with certain women and they kind of leave a very negative mark on you, and you could maybe look at it like a sexually transmitted curse or bad energy that messes you up and messes you up in future relationships. And by the way, that is a reason why a lot of Christians wisely say that you should wait for sex until marriage, because some women leave marks on you that is very evil, very not good. So, all right. Next question. Can you talk about girls having guy friends? Thanks. Well, I've talked about this before, but let me just say, thanks, Thomas. No, it's all good. It's all good. Save your money and buy the masterclass. Save the money, buy the masterclass. You can buy my book, 3 Pillars of Attraction, which is coming out soon. You can buy my book, Tackling Texting. It's on Amazon. But yeah, I appreciate that, though. I appreciate the sentiment. So, and you can like and subscribe. That's what you can do. You can like, comment, and subscribe, because that'll boost the algorithm, and tell your friends about it. So girls having guy friends, look, the straightforward answer is that how many guy friends does she have versus girlfriends? How often does she hang out with guy friends? How close is she to the guy friends? How long has she known the guy friends? These are all variables you have to consider. So, for instance, if a girl knows a guy from high school or even college and they're friends, I don't really think it's a big deal for her to, still be friends with him. Depending on other dynamics, depending on, okay, well, they're still friends. Well, how much do they hang out? What are they, with these contingencies in place? What's the past history between them? What's his relationship status? Do I think it's healthy for a woman to be really, really close with guys from the opposite sex? No, I don't. Do I think it's natural for girls to become friends with guys on a personal one-on-one level after college when, significant, no, I don't think that. I don't think that. I It's natural in tribal environments like high school and college because you're going to be in groups. You're going to know each other through the social atmosphere. So you'll have shared experiences together. You may have been friends mostly just through the context of those social groups, so you know each other afterwards, right? So it's kind of tough for me to be dogmatic about that stuff. But if you're like one on one making guy friends, you gotta ask yourself, why would a girl be doing that? What'd she gain out of it? It can mean anything from that she has a hard time being intimate with guys, and so she keeps them at arm's length and collects, friends for validation, or it could mean that, uh, she's collecting a bunch of orbiters who want to sleep with her, and the two things are not mutually exclusive, right? She's got her boyfriend, but she's got orbiters, which isn't a great thing. So, I do think that it's a flag if a girl has a ton of guy friends and has more guy friends than girlfriends, because that means she obviously really cares about male attention. And I think it means that she is less likely to, um, she's less likely to simply connect with you. And she probably uses those guy friends as a way of getting her validation fix without having to get close to anybody. So the worst thing though that you have to watch out for is a girl who has a few really close guy friends, like that she talks to all the time. That is something that becomes a big impediment in a relationship under the vast majority of circumstances. If you're lucky, that will gradually, naturally diminish. Um, but if he's single, it just creates a lot of, because that means that they have like a very close personal connection with each other. And I can tell you, in those really close friendships, it's not just simply that one of the guys wants to hook up with her. Like the guy probably has a crush on her, or she has a crush on the guy, or both. So that's always complicated. Then I had some good lady friends in high school, college. Thought I was close with them, but they all distanced themselves from me once I got a boyfriend. Yeah, it's funny how that is. I had an enormous number of female friends, and I had hooked up with quite a few of them. But once I got a relationship, some of them dropped off, but there was a little bit of, there was still in the early stages that they were trying to hang out, and I heard from my wife that they weren't necessarily that nice to her. I didn't see it, but apparently, when I got engaged, absolutely massive drop off. It was kind of like, oh, it's for real. This is not just a couple month thing where Pat pretends to be in a relationship and he gets back out there. Once I got engaged, and then certainly once I got married, um, just wiped out like 90% of female friends. So it's funny how that works out. All right, next question here. Someone told me they have set times with their wife when they talk over issues. Like once a week, they sit together with a glass of wine and tell the other what they liked about this week, what wasn't so nice, etc. I don't know what to think about this. Well, look, I don't personally like that. I don't personally, not like a big fan of that. Sounds like you're asking for. No, look, okay. Let me put it this way. I think that could work in a lot of relationships. And I think if people have a hard time communicating how they feel, if a couple has a tendency to bury their emotions, then having a set time once a week where they can air out grievances and try to not let it crowd the week is a good thing. I would not personally do it. I just not for me. It's not for me. I My wife and I more organically will say something, right? We can tell when the other one's upset about something, and then we bring it up. Hey, is everything okay? And then we say what's going on, right? And if not, if it's not noticed, then we can bring it up on our own. But sometimes it's like, maybe something annoyed you in a moment, but it was a one-off thing, and there is no reason to like, okay, I'll talk about this at our Sunday meeting, which I think could just bring up unnecessary drama. Maybe people manage it in a more judicious manner, but it's an interesting strategy. It's just the same thing with people scheduling sex, which I don't love the idea of it, but I think it's good to have it. I also think on a more general basis, it's good to have an agreement between you and your wife. If you guys get caught up with work and stuff, maybe you don't necessarily schedule it every night, but maybe you make an agreement where you still don't schedule it to be like every week at the same time, but you just have an agreement that, yeah, we are going to have sex every X number of days. So you know, that that is just known between the two of you, and one or both of you will prioritize it. All right, two more questions here. What do you think about astrology? Like not the sun sign horoscopes, but the natal charts that take all the planets into account, and also in regards to partner compatibility. I notice a lot of things that are true in these natal charts, but some aspects seem weird to me. This could, however, be just indoctrination, and deep down, I am that guy. Well, here's what I'd say. I get astro readings once a lunar cycle from Paul Publisher, and I talked about him before and I promoted him before. I will say this because I know that some people are skeptical about astrology. Two things. The first is that I don't dictate my life on it. I more am interested in what it says and how it jives up with my own intuition. Paul in particular, I think, is a really intuitive person, and I think that he gauges reality through astrology, and I like that. I like hearing an understanding of things from a different dynamic. I also think it makes logical or maybe intuitive sense that if everyone knows that there's effects from just simply the gravitational pull of the moon, so it would maybe make sense that planets exert different influences on them. Now that the quality of that energy is maybe something else that you could take into account or argue about. But the point of the matter is, I do think there's something to it. I think a lot of people are really retarded, stupid at it. I think there's a lot of frauds and fakes, and you got to pick who you want to go with. I agree. Sun sign horoscope stuff is barely useful. That would be like 1/13 of most astrology, because you have to take into account all sorts of other planets and where they were at during your birth time on your birthday, not just the date, like the hour and the minute matters, and where the planets and moons were during that time. So I do think that there's value to it. And actually, in the book, to get on my mailing list if you haven't got on it, but my book, The Three Pillars of Attraction, does address this with type compatibility, personality compatibility. So it's my perspective. I don't believe in following this stuff to the letter, though, and putting it before God, just for what that's worth. All right. Had a girl ask me where is a good city to meet guys to marry. Traditional girl, 23, church going, wants to have many kids and be a homemaker, get married in the next year or two. I have no idea. What's a good city? Okay. So a good city is I'll tell you what, not a good city isn't, would be New York City. Not a very good city for that kind of stuff. But you probably knew that already. The reality is that a good city to meet somebody is going to be a mid-sized city that's in a more conservative state. So if you can get those two variables together, you're going to be in a bit of a better situation. Um, you know, some people mentioned Oklahoma City. People mentioned Salt Lake City. I agree with all that stuff. Uh, I think even Chicago is a very big city, but I believe because Chicago is like the big city for the Midwest, so you tend to get, even though you're in the city and you're doing the city life, it seems like it's a little bit more. I don't want to call it wholesome, but I'll just say that there's a higher probability of meeting people in Chicago than there is in a place like New York or San Francisco. Nashville's a great spot, a really great spot. There's a lot of more family values people who are in there, as well as fun people. When I say as well as fun people, what I mean is as well people who are like into just a single life. So you have this, I think, a similar thing going on in Austin. You have a range. You have people there who are just there for the degen lifestyle, and then you have people who are there to get serious. So you want to find being in more of a conservative state and mid-sized city is really your best bet. That's your best bet. Um, if you're in a not conservative state, but you have a mid-sized city, decent chance. If you're bigger city in a more conservative state, decent chance. Big city, not conservative state, least chance. It's my perspective. All right, guys. Moving on to COVID cabal next. So I'll see you guys there. Oh yeah, just real quick, what Ben says right there is totally right. Don't go to Miami for the trad. Miami's the exception to the rule with that stuff. Definitely a party city.